variation, the canon is this, but with the bass. But then for the last one of these variations, we said I didn't really need all of this. The 9th variation, the 27th canon, without any need for a supporting part. So there are 30 of these variations. The 27th is the last canon. The 30th is sort of a mix-up of different canons and folk songs and a bunch of other wonderful things. Bach never, so the 30th variation is the last one. So the 3-end variation is the canon at the interval of the nth. So the 6th variation, the voice 2 came on the 2nd note of the scale. This one, voice 2 came on the 9th note of the scale, etc. So the question is, how do I finish this talk? And usually I have this chorale player that I play based on this tune, which is, it's something like this, except that here the constraint is that every once in a while some standard tune like, Great Fortresses or God comes in and the canon has to match that also. I don't have enough time to do that, so I'll finish instead with what you might imagine could possibly in an alternate universe might have been the 36th variation in the among the 30 Goldbergs. 36 is 3 times 12, so that means that the two voices have to be at the interval of 12 from each other. So first voice will be here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And they'll always be in this relation, and they'll also realize this Goldberg variation, this Goldberg theme. There is a major and a minor mode, and I'll only play the major mode, and then I'll open the floor for questions, etc. So.
So there must be some questions. Yes, Steve.
Your talk reminds me of a book I read several years ago about Goethe, Escher, and Bach by Hofstadter in Indiana. And in it, he talks about in the Bach fugue of cycling down, or this concept of self-reference.
Yeah.
Well, he also mentions these notes called Shepherd notes.
Shepherd notes.
Shepherd, right?
Yeah.
And when you go up the scale, you have 2 successive ones. I guess it'd be like having a 1 squared canon where you have A, B, C, D, and then right below it you have A, B, C, D with the A's underneath the A. But you vary the intensity of the note, the upper one, you soften it down, and you go up the scales, you get back where you started from. Can you play that? I've never heard that.
Oh dear. I think the...
program, haven't done that.
They say discretion is the better part of valor. I think the discreet answer is to say no. I mean, so this isn't exactly, it's as a canon, it's trivial, but I think that it's a way of playing. The piano is very long, but eventually it runs out of notes. And after 7 octaves, you can't play a scale anymore unless you want to, PDQ Bach. But if you imagine playing all of the octaves of the C major scale at once, well, imagine there are 7 octaves in the piano. I only have hands wide enough to reach 4 of them at once. But then if you imagine that somehow the upper voice is getting softer as the lower voice is coming in, so you can have the illusion, is this going to work? something that you have to, well, you might be able to do it with extensive practice, which I haven't done, but it's very easy to program the computer to do this.
Right, and people who say I've heard it, it sounds really weird. Have you ever heard it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
It sounds weird, and I've even seen, you know, this Escher drawing, which has, which one am I talking about?
Stairs.
That's right, the stairs, where you have people going down
Steps, yeah.
12 steps
Exactly.
and coming up where they started.
Right.
And so you can do that, but that's exactly what shepherd tones do. And so somebody made a computer animation where there is a fixed guy going down the 12 steps and winding up where he started. And because the shepherd tone, what I got here, the upper voice, and then you can sort of both hear the impossible endless descent and also see it here. So yes, that's been done. It's only distantly related to the kind of thing I'm
But
doing.
no, seriously, you also relate to the mathematics of the concept of the inconsistencies of self-referencing. You know, I have a theory that's both complete and consistent.
This isn't really this isn't really a matter of self-reference. I mean, it's part of maybe the same circle or square of ideas, but it's really mathematically a quotient space. You take the real line and you declare that two points in it are equivalent if they're an integer number of octaves apart. So that you're basically wrapped up the real line into a circle. And then yes, you can keep going in one direction and wind up where you came back, and it's very common, you know, well-known feature of a circle or a clock that 12 hours later you're in the same place, even though time has progressed 12 hours. So it's this, you know, this mathematical topological notion of universal covering space, of a quotient space, and so forth. And this is a pictorial and musical representation of it, but it's not really a matter of this Gödelian self-reference. So I think that's about all I need to say about this here.
Other questions?
Yeah, here.
So given like kind of the algorithmic way of looking at this, do you think computers will ever be able to rival human composers?
Yes. When, who knows? I mean, it used to be said that computer chess players will, you know, be equal with human, the world champion in 10 years, and it's always 10 years ahead. But that's happened, and it's been 10 years since then, and now the human chess players don't really understand what it is the computers are doing, but they're still, you know, beating them every time. It will take longer for music, to be sure, because it's not as, you know, things like which notes go with which notes, that you can already put on the computer. Things like what makes a reasonable musical shape is a bit hard to describe. But ultimately, you know, for chess, this is a, you know, there is a subjective, excuse me, there's an objective test, which is who gives checkmate. For music, it's a matter of, you know, moving the spirit of another human being, and that's somewhat harder to encode, especially when you don't have a human being. You know, you can't do an exhaustive search over a million possibilities, which is basically the way that chess machines work, because you don't have a human being there that can listen in a microsecond to each one of the million possibilities and tell which one of them is the best. So I'm sure it will be possible at some point, but the artificial intelligence folks aren't there yet. Composing canons by computers in principle an easy part of this, but for whatever reason the most convincing simulators of Chopin, of Mozart, and so forth haven't implemented it yet. They will soon, I'm sure.
Are there any other questions? Another question?
Somebody up there, you saw?
All right, if not, let's thank Noam once again. Thanks very much for coming and drive safely.
Is it you?